Hello there, thank you for staying with us and welcome to another edition of Channels Beam. I am Victor Matthias. Now, it is no longer news that Twitter is facing a likely takeover after Tesla CEO Elon Musk made a $43 billion offer, though shareholders have rejected the bid, with a Saudi prince at the forefront of those objecting the takeover. Musk says he is keen to purchase the microblogging site because of his strong intuitive sense that having a public platform that is maximally trusted and broadly inclusive is extremely important to the future and not the economics at all. Today on the program, we will be looking at what the effects of this takeover might be if it goes through and what the future will hold for the company moving forward. But let's first take a look at the trending topics in the past week before we get into this conversation.
Christian faithful across the country have joined their counterparts around the world to celebrate Resurrection Sunday, better known as Easter. Easter is a Christian festival commemorating the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead, which occurred on the third day after his burial following his crucifixion at Calvary. The federal government have been receiving knocks for the pardons granted to former governors of Plateau State, Joshua Darie, and Taraba State, Jolly Inyame, convicted for corruption. The governors were among 159 prisoners pardoned by the council at the meeting presided over by President Muhammad Buhari at the presidential villa in Abuja on Thursday.
Well, there you go. Those were some of the trends or some of the topics that made the trends in the past week. Of course, it got Nigerians talking. That's why it made the trends. But you can be a part of the conversation. You can just tweet at us at Channels TV, at Channels Beam, at Victor_MBIDI, as well as use the hashtag Channels Beam. But let's get the conversation started, and we have joining us Olushola Amusan. He is a Nigerian social entrepreneur and speaker known for his work as an artificial intelligence evangelist. He is currently the co-founder and CEO of Vesti, a US-based digital bank for immigrants arriving in the United States. Olushola, it's a pleasure to have you on the program today.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Of course. We also have joining us Grace Akinashun. She is the founder and publisher of SME Speaks, a tech media company leveraging storytelling and data analysis to inform, equip, and accelerate the growth of SMEs and startups in Africa. Grace, it's a pleasure to have you on the show as well.
Thank you very much. I'm so excited to be here.
Indeed. So Grace kicks out this conversation for us. What came to mind when you heard of the move by Elon Musk, to take over Twitter?
Thanks for that, Victor. So when I first heard about his attempt to take over Twitter, it wasn't so much of how he wants to do it, because Elon is apparently the richest man in the world, worth over $260 billion. And he's offering what actually exceeds Twitter market cap, which is currently at approximately $75 billion. So his proposal of $43 billion, which he has put as his best and final offer, would make sense in the conventional business world. But it was more of the why, because of course, we can't say that Elon is looking to make more profits from this. He already has SpaceX, he already has Tesla, he has some of the most reputable and valuable companies in the world. So it was more of a why and more of a how would the current stockholders respond to this? What exactly is Elon looking to achieve in the next couple of years, especially considering that he had previously, more recently again, acquired over 9% of the stake in the company. So currently the why is still very sketchy, because he says he wants a more decentralized platform and so on. But after making the announcement and after the initial purchase that he made, in Twitter, we saw him moving for some specific changes, such as including Dogecoin as a payment system on Twitter, and also pushing for the edit button and so other and a lot of other things. So it's still not so clear. And I believe that beyond the semantics, beyond the entire business propositions, there may be deeper reasons to why Elon is pushing for acquisition of Twitter at this stage. But considering what the response has been so far, I mean, that was expected, because if, and that's a very big if, Elon Musk's push for Twitter's acquisition is successful, then it reinforces his power and influence as an individual, and already he has a track record of being able to easily sway public opinion. So again, for me, it's a very strong if, and then there's a big why to the entire situation.
Yeah, I am also, wondering what that big why, could be. But, he was answering questions during a TEDx event sometime, and he said, according to him, not that why he is buying the company. Oh, I actually said that in my opening, but let me just say that again. He said it's because of his strong intuitive sense that having a public platform that is maximally trusted and broadly inclusive is extremely important to the future of civilization. He adds that, but I don't care about the economics at all, which you clearly kind of mentioned, just earlier. So, but we're having people having, the bid is having stumbling blocks, so to speak now. Why would you think other shareholders would be, standing in front of him, saying no to this takeover, apart from the fact that you said it'll give him this influence, this global influence? What else would you think could be a reason behind why he's having this opposition?
Okay, thanks for that. Now, if you had to go about the whole decentralized or a freer platform, so to speak, actually, it shouldn't be in control of one person. And there is, I mean, from the looks of things and from the resistance of the current stakeholders, they are very concerned about. I believe that they are very concerned about what the actual use case is going to be down the line. We could say the initial reasons are quite valid. I mean, the freedom and expression and having a more decentralized social media platform has been the push of a lot of global leaders in recent days. We saw that what happened with the Facebook, saga and so other situations after that. But right now, their concern is just an individual being able to have that. I would say that's the primary concern. An individual being able to have that centralized and powerful control. It may not cut well, down the line.
Let me get Olushola's take on this. Olushola, after everything, said and done, Elon is, going to move forward with his bid. If it gets rejected, fine. But in your own perspective, what would you say could be the reason? Because, or would you say that one person having the power to do and undo on an influential company or startup or tech company like Twitter, what would you think would be the gains or the pros and the cons in this perspective, in this respect?
Thank you very much, Victor. Listen, one thing we're missing is that Elon Musk has been pretty much responsible, even on the sides where we have never thought about the kind of power that he has. For crying out loud, this guy is a contractor to NASA and takes rockets to the International Space Station every couple of months. The kind of power he has already, I don't know why we're surprised or we're wondering why he's trying to even get more influential. But I think what is important for us here is not just to think about what could be the benefit for Elon himself, but to think about what could be the benefit for Twitter itself. So for a company that is in competition with other social media platforms like Snap and Meta, Twitter hasn't done well from an economic standpoint. When it went IPO with share price of, I think, about $26 a couple of years ago, think about what has happened. Its new CEO, Parag, took over, and then the stock started plummeting. Twitter should be at a point, should be at the league from a business standpoint, because we always, ever so often, only consider Twitter as a social tool. It should also be an enterprise that is successful, one that, given the kind of stature that Elon Musk has, is going to experience radical transformation from the standpoint of its economics if someone as visionary as Elon comes on board. So it's actually to the advantage and to the interest of these stockholders, of these shareholders right now, if they can allow him to basically take it at that sweet spot, which I think is about $60 price. And of course, you know, there's a lot more advantage. So I'd like to be on the other side of like Grace's conversation, that apart from the fact that this guy is trying to be, you know, from a business standpoint as an entrepreneur, be in every sector where he can wield a lot of power. You know, I don't think we should be worried about like one tweet that is going to change the world, or the fact that Twitter is going to be canceled, or that Twitter is not going to run the way it's being currently run. I think from a very large perspective, if you know about like the power this rocket builder has, like from the standpoint of, you know, being able to do things that actually contribute significantly to how we live our lives. Like literally imagine the International Space Station come crashing down on us simply because, you know, Elon and SpaceX are not responsible. So I wanted to take that on one side and just really think about what could be better for the economics of Twitter, a company that has been largely unprofitable, that is not going in the direction that many people have expected. As a matter of fact, if you didn't know, like the moment Parag got on board, he should have cut checks to buy and acquire stocks of the company. He's CEO of the company and it doesn't own significant shares. And also many people on the board of Twitter do not own significant shares, which is really, really concerning, because really the direction the company will go would be the direction of those who are most influential in it. So I think it will be to the great advantage of Twitter. That's the point. That's the part I'd like to stand at this point.
Oh yeah, because like you said, I was actually looking at the books. Twitter has not been able to increase, you know, its user base, its revenue, and all of that. I know, like Grace also mentioned, you know, he is someone who easily sways public opinion. So you think him being CEO or owner of the company, do you think that would change compared to other big tech companies like Facebook, who have seen their numbers grow in terms, because one of the things he also said himself is he doesn't care about the economics of the company. So that perhaps might not change even if he takes over you know, the company. But I mean, what do you think about that, sir? And also,
if you know Elon very well, he has never been part of anything. He never tries to be part of anything unprofitable. He basically said that even if he wouldn't make money in Twitter, he would prefer that Twitter was serving a larger, better purpose. So think of him as the guy who basically says those things to show you how deeply passionate he is about the organization. And even if I wasn't successful with this, I would be able to still buy it. But think about it. You've used Twitter for more than 9 years now. As a commercial entity, it's not a non-profit. As a business that investors have put money in, you don't pay for Twitter. Despite the fact that there is a few new services now, I think Twitter Blue and all of those kind of things, you know, several years down the line, they have still not been able to find what is their profitable business model. But think about every single thing that Elon has put his hand in, and think about everything going on in the stock market concerning all his enterprises, from Tesla to SpaceX, to all of these other organizations that he's part of. They are organizations that eventually become profitable. So Elon is good at one thing. He knows how to get the right people on board to do what needs to be done. And he has proven that in an industry that was extremely difficult to disrupt. And I see the same happening in Tesla, Twitter as well, because beyond his banters and his ability to tweet whenever he wants, which quite frankly, every single Twitter user has. The fact that it's Elon posting, the fact that he has ability to sway public opinion, as you've said, the fact that he's influential, he's not the only one who is influential on Twitter, right? So as long as he follows all the rules and the guidelines, even as the owner of Twitter, you know, the key thing here is let's put our attention on the transformative potential of what this very, very radical entrepreneur can bring aboard to a company like Twitter. I'm putting my sense on it. This is not an investment advice, but I'm putting my sense on that potential.
Well, I would hold you to that. But you know, let's first of all take a quick break, and we'll be back, of course, to continue with this conversation. Please stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. We still have with us our panelists joining us via Zoom from Lagos as well as Dallas. That's Grace Akinoshun in Lagos here, as well as Olushola Amusan, who is joining us from Dallas in the United States. So before we went on break, Olushola, you were talking about, you know, putting your sense and, sticking how would I put it now, sticking yourself out for Elon, that if he takes over the company is more likely to benefit from him than him benefiting from the company. So that's on the one side. On the other side, we've seen in the past how the governments have come hard on tech CEOs. Zuckerberg, for instance, how Facebook was in the forefront of a lot of House committees and all of that because of using user data for public and political gain as well. This is something that is likely to happen anywhere. I mean, selling user data, and thankfully you have the GDPR in Europe, but I don't know how subsisting it is in the United States. But what is it like in there? How compliant do you think they would be with all of this?
Yeah, one thing I can tell you for sure, Victor, is the fact that Elon is doing all of this in the middle of a lot of spotlight, like right under the eyes of the regulators, and you can be sure they're going to take all of that very seriously. Twitter has been a company that has a policy. I mean, think about kicking off the entire president of the United States off the platform simply because it didn't go through the necessary guidelines, around hate speech and all of that. So I think considering the fact that privacy is so important, you've seen everything that happened with the sales of user data to Cambridge Analytica and everything that Facebook had to experience, now Meta had to experience in front of Congress. So taking this, considering whether it's a privately owned company or it's a publicly owned company, whatever eventually happens with like this Elon's bid, one thing I am sure of is that it's doing everything right in the open. And there's going to be a lot. He knows that part of what will ensure that they're profitable is that they are positioned correctly. Part of what will make sure that it's a profitable acquisition is that they are positioned correctly. So as much as, yes, he gives the middle finger and does all of that to SEC, he is still really, really, really committed. He must be committed, as he has been with all of his other companies that are contractors to the US government, essentially, who can easily sanction him on other grounds if he wasn't going in the line of what the government would require. So think about this as an overall, what's Elon's big box today? Tesla. What's his big box today? SpaceX and the large contracts they have with NASA. Now, would he throw all of that away, because he basically wants to prove a point with Twitter? I think not. So I feel that already there's a lot of, privacy constructs and regulations within the United States has advanced so much that it will be really, really hard for somebody to just flout all of those rules without being slapped with major sanctions, without Elon being exempted from something like this.
Well, let's hope the regulators would do as you have said they will. But let me bring Grace back into the conversation. Grace, looking at the future of the company, Olusola seems to have this optimistic mien towards what would happen to the company if the takeover goes through eventually. But in your own perspective, how do you think that is going to how do you think that will play out?
So I think there has to be a balance. If we want to achieve what Olusola said in the next couple of years, because at the end of the day, you have to balance this capitalism versus, the overall goal to the public and even to Twitter itself. We can argue that Twitter's financial books hasn't been good over the years, and that there's a lot that Twitter can do. But I believe Elon's existing companies such as SpaceX, Tesla, and even his contract with NASA, which has really been phenomenal over the years. Twitter isn't going to ride on them, rather these businesses would ride on Twitter. These businesses they need Twitter more than Twitter needs them in terms of the leverage side of things. But if you're talking about the financial side of things, of course, Elon Musk as an individual already has the capacity. But I do not think at this point what's going to make Twitter scale is plunging in more finance into the business, so to speak. So I think it's exploring more dynamic use cases, more features that would make the company profitable and also benefit the current users on Twitter. So all of this, they have to be checked. And the aspect of control, one individual having an ultimate control is still a very big concern. It will always be a concern. We've seen that with Meta, we've seen that with a lot of platforms. We've seen that with TikTok. How do we regulate this? How is Twitter actually going to be decentralized if all of these nuances are not being addressed? So yes, Elon Musk has a very wonderful pedigree of being able to turn around businesses and building remarkable enterprises. But then the fact still remains, if an individual is empowered to wield so much influence, what's going to be the overall effect, to the individual, to the platform, to the users of the platform, and also to the global, space, as the case may be. So I'm not saying Elon Musk can push or this won't be good for Twitter, but I'm saying that there has to be a balance somewhere. So if Elon Musk could be a little bit flexible, inviting others and so on, that would make sense, not a complete takeover. And I believe that's more reason the current stockholders issued the poison pill. That's why they have been very resistant to this phenomenal change, as the case may be, that's coming.
Yeah, because it's good you made mention of the users, because I was just thinking that in all of this, where do the users coming? Because Twitter is what it is today. Twitter has all of the influence it wields today because of the users. So in all of this, where are the users? What benefit do they stand to gain from all of this?
So, I'll write on the proverbial saying that when two elephants are fighting, the grass will suffer, right? It goes, on the other side, say, when two elephants are profiting, the grass will not necessarily have a say.
Yeah.
But in the case of Twitter, one thing that we've seen over the years is that Twitter's users are actually powerful. Okay, the wield is such influence that when they come together, it could create a seismic change. We've seen it over time, both on a national level. We've seen it on a global level. We've even seen Twitter and the users play a very key role when it comes to the past election that happened in the United States, and so many key events that has happened across the world. So right now, I would say in this whole scenario, the users aren't the paramount concern. Olushola is arguing that when Elon Musk comes in, it's going to look good for the books of the company, which is a valid point. And even Elon Musk is saying he's not, his priority isn't for economical gains. But no one has actually said, how this is going to benefit the users at the end of the day. The only tweet I've seen that Elon Musk put out to include the user is also about a change that he has actually been driving for Twitter to effect for years, which is the edit button.
The edit button.
He's been asking and clamoring for years.
Yeah.
Exactly. So you can say it's also. I mean, after buying the over 9% stake in Twitter, the first thing also aligns with his own interest. Not necessarily he wasn't necessarily an open poll. It wasn't like what do you want to say? How can we make Twitter safer for you? How can we make it more decentralized and so on? So
yeah.
At the end of the day, that issue of influence is still there, and that issue of personal interest is still there, and I would say that's a very valid concern for the current stakeholders.
All right, Olushola, just in winding down, what do you think the benefits of the users will be if this takeover eventually goes through quickly? Olushola.
Twitter has been a very slow company. And in this fast-paced world, it's been a company that has not responded to the tides of innovation and change. And while you could be looking at this as an institutional entity that has engendered trust over time, which is great, there is still a lot of opportunities for innovation. The search functionality in Twitter sucks. A lot of things don't work the way they should. Bots still tweet at us. There are so many things that Twitter could be doing better, that a radical entrepreneur like Elon Musk who can identify the right hands to do things will be able to do. The culture in Twitter hasn't really been fantastic. Developers are left in their droves. It's really not a choice place of work. A lot of these things can change if someone like Elon comes in. He's likable, even though a lot of users who might feel like they're sort of advocates for social change and transparency might not generally like wealthy people or people of wealth. But Elon as a person, because of his radical behavior sometimes and his eccentric views, can be totally likable. And I feel that in all, for the users, it will be greatly beneficial because not much will change about how free users can be. As a matter of fact, Elon is taking a democratic view to ask people, do they want the edit button on Twitter? So it could even actually be an opportunity to be able to actually request for things that would be able to make the user experience much better. So everything right now can be pinned on the leadership of the organization, and much more can be done to actually make things better.
Well, we have to wait and see if eventually, first of all, if the takeover would go through, and if it does, then we can see if all of these things are going to happen. But I have to say thank you to you, Olushola Muson, for joining us, CEO of Vesti, as well as Grace Akinoshun, publisher and founder of SME Speaks. Both of you joined us via Zoom. Thank you for joining us and sharing your thoughts on this.
My pleasure.
Of course. And that's where we wrap the conversation today on the program. Thank you so very much for watching. I'm Victor Matthias. Bye for now.